Om Satchidananda. Om Satchidananda. Namaste and welcome to the session number 1, first session. The title of the series is Spiritual Aspects of Agnihotra. I will devote this first session for introductory matter. As a matter of introduction, I want to develop two perspectives. First is an overview of the Vedic literature so that we get an idea where does Agnihotra come into picture. And also we will see Agnihotra in the scheme of human pursuits. What are we supposed to do in this world and how does Agnihotra fit in the scheme, particularly the Vedic scheme of the human life. So let's begin with the body of Vedic literature we have inherited. Of course, in the very, even before I list them, as you are quite aware of, India has gone through a long history, several millennia, and there has been a great significant turning point about 5,100 years ago called as Mahabharat War, the great Indian war, when cousins were fighting for a piece of land. And from that on, indeed, Maharishi Dayanand says that it's about 6,000 years that India faced a major decline and downfall. It must be so because Mahabharata must be a result of a downfall that must have started some time ago. So his speculation that 6,000 years, the last 6,000 years, is a period of our decline is not far off from the fact that Mahabharata caused and is resultant of our decline. So the things, the literature we are particularly interested in is pre-Mahabharata period. It's not that there is no good literature in post-Mahabharata. There is, but we will look at the Vedic literature in the pre-Mahabharata period. Of course, the first and foremost is the Vedas. That, in our perspective, is revealed word, Aparushe. That is the beginning of the knowledge that humankind gets going because we don't invent knowledge, we merely discover knowledge. So, to kickstart the human endeavors on the earth, the first set of human beings were given a body of knowledge called the Vedas. The term Ved means knowledge as a noun. Also, this term comes as a verb, as in Vedahametam Purusham Mahantam Aditya Varnam, Yajurveda 31st chapter, where it is said, I know him. Veda aham, I know, whom that Purusham Mahantam Aditya Varnam. That complete supreme consciousness, Purush. So here the term Ved is a verb to know, and also we are familiar with the word Vedas as the embodiment of knowledge composed in certain words. So that is our first layer of books that we have inherited. We will call it as Vedic period, when the people obtained the guideline and led their life according to the Vedas. They were probably even interacting with one another through the passages and words of the Vedas. There must have been a very high order of human beings from spiritual and intellectual and also probably from physical point of view that they were able to memorize all the verses in the Vedas, about 20,000 or so, and converse in them and interact with one another in those passages. They also understood the deep meaning in those words and they led their life according to that message. Since they were very superior quality, any decline, because this is human nature, from spiritual angle, we always go through a phase of decline unless we guard ourselves, unless we take good care of ourselves. If left as it is, a human being is likely to go through a spiritual decline. So, spiritual decline must have occurred, but because they were very superior quality, it must have happened at a very, very slow rate. Not at such a fast rate as we just mentioned due to the Mahabharat war or slightly before that. So, this is spiritual devolution, which is a natural process, so to say. Of course, nowadays we hear the term evolution, so the term devolution may not be very commensurate to what we are used to in these days. But we must realize that a human being with time goes through a spiritual decline only unless he takes good measures for spiritual upliftment. For example, almost all the adults will agree that as an adult we are not more honest than what we were as a child. So, as a child, we were honest. We couldn't even imagine that we can express an event different from the way we have seen it. Very naturally, we were truthful. But as an adult, we are not necessarily that much truthful, that much honest. So, this is the story about an individual human being that his childhood was more truthful than the adulthood is. So we can extrapolate that childhood of humanity must have also been more honest than what we experience these days. That points towards spiritual devolution, something that is natural process, probably natural design. Of course, when it comes to other material advances, like in modern science and technology, then our understanding, knowledge, and other things can evolve with time. But our spiritual makeup, unless we take extraordinary measures, goes through a decline. So that Vedic period must have lasted very, very long, even millions of years, but gradually going through a decline, very slight decline. And there must have come a time when the people felt that they cannot hold 20,000 verses in their memory. Their memory capacity was probably declining. So there was a need for the Vedic message to be composed or to be packaged in its gist form. So, of course, the decline is not that every human being has declined. There is a transition period. So, there were some people who were finding it difficult to memorize all the verses in the Vedas, but there were many who were still comfortable with them. So, those who were comfortable with them, we will call them as rishis, they had a task to deliver the Vedic message in gist form to another group of people who are not able to comprehend the Vedas as a whole. Now the specialization comes into picture. So there were books basically in two streams. In material science, that is called Brahmana, and in spiritual science, that is called Upanishad. So the rishis produced two sets of books, Brahman and Upanishad, so that the bulk of the population who could not take recourse to the Vedas direct, they were able to get the message from the Brahmana and Upanishads. Now, this second age, we can just give it a name as, say, Upanishadic age. This also goes on maybe many millennia, millions of years. But in the Vedic age and Upanishadic age, the common parameter is that people were following the Vedic way of life. Now there is further decline, spiritual decline. And now comes the third age, which we'll give it a name, is as age of Shardharshan, 6 books of Vedic philosophy. Now here, in the third age, there were people who even wanted to experiment with materialistic way of life. Like today, in modern times, the bulk of the population, except for some minuscule minority believe in, and they are leading what we can characterize as materialistic life. They go after the sensual joy and pleasures of life and diminish their pain and suffering. Very simple, nothing wrong in it. But they are not much concerned about spiritual aspects of life, why we are in this world, why we have been sent into this world, where will we go from here. They don't bother to ask these questions. And even if they ask these questions, they don't have rational, logical framework, consistent framework to give answers to these questions. So just ad hoc measure, they lead their life day to day. So imagine after the second Upanishadic age, there came a time that some people began to toy with the idea that let's maximize the sensual and worldly pleasures of life. Why not to be happy in a material sense? Then again, there are wise people, Vedic rishis. They produced the third body of the literature. In particular, there are six books called as Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, Vaisheshik, Mimamsa, and Vedanta. Six books. So as to convince the general population that it is not a good idea to deviate from Vedic way of life. So these books, as I said, in first layer of Vedas and in second layers of Brahmana and Upanishads, everybody was following Vedic way of life. And the literature was in the particular form, what is called mantras. Now, in the third age of Shaddarshan, six books of Vedic philosophy, the literary style has changed. Now, this is in sutra called aphorisms. They are not full sentences, probably because the memory capacity was also decreasing. So, it has to be a very concise formulation in minimum words. So, they became in sutra. And also, they are argumentative. In Vedas and Upanishads, there are not much arguments, a simple statement of the truth. But now, here, there is a kind of debate. There is a Vedic rishi arguing, trying to convince the other person, look, it is in your own interest to follow the Vedic way of life. Otherwise, you will be repenting. So, the first book in this third layer is called Sankhya, which almost the starting statement is Atati with dukha atyant niveti atyant purushartha. Dukha is pain and suffering. Niveti is getting away from it. So the author, Kapil, is saying, I am writing a book which will empower you to get away from pain and suffering. But it's not just dukh niveti, it is dukh atyant niveti. So he's claiming absolute cessation of pain and suffering, which is quite a bold statement. And then to get away pain and suffering, we make some effort that is called purushartha. So, of course, if you want to get away from pain in absolute sense, you have to make an absolute effort. Atyant Purusharth. So, this is what he explained in his book called Sankhya, where the message was by way of meditation, we should calm our mind so that we can see that me, my consciousness, myself, and my mind are two distinct different entities. That is called Purush Prakriti Vivek. Purush is that consciousness, individual consciousness of mind. Prakriti is matter out of which our body and mind are formed. So, at the very innermost level, I am functioning with my mind as my closest instrument, but the layperson thinks he and his mind are one intact unit. So, when I go get some practice of meditation and I can calm my mind as if almost as if I am in deep dreamless sleep, what is called sushupti. So, when my mind is thoroughly inactive, whatever is left over is my self awareness. That is what me, I am. So he said that if you are able to reach this state, then whatever the cause that brought you here into the world, that is called klesh, certain seeds, those seeds will get burned out. So you will not come here into this world because in this world, whatever effort you make to improve your quality of life, even then, one way or another, the pain and suffering strikes you. Even for the smartest person, nobody can say, I am the really happy person. There is no pain and suffering I am experiencing. There is no such human being in the world. And of course, that state is called mukti, moksha, liberation, salvation, isolation, Cavalier. It has many names. That's what his message was. Of course, his message was for a very superior quality of people, but generally we know it. A community, a society has three kinds of people: superior, average, and below average. So that is where some time later, some more millennia later, Patanjali, the author of Yoga Sutra, he came into picture and he packaged the message of Kapil in Sankhya and elaborated it, particularly the meditation practices, for three kinds of people: for superior, average, and below average. So he wrote a book on what is called Yoga Darshanam, Yoga Sutra, where his message was in his, the book has four chapters. The first chapter, Samadhi Path, is for superior quality people. Then in second chapter, in the beginning, he mentions Kriya Yoga, that is for average people in his time. And then later in the second chapter, he mentions, it's about Ashtang Yoga, which is for below the average, who require the teaching of even moral code of conduct, Ahimsa, Satyaste, Brahmacharya, Paigya, what is called Yama. Probably bulk of today's population will be in this category. So, this is what is spiritual devolution. Sankhya was for only superior people, as if in his time some people were experimenting with worldly life, materialistic life, but they were also very good quality people. So he suggests that no, you shouldn't do that. You cannot be smart. Your life cannot be void of pain and suffering. If you don't want to make any compromise, then follow the Vedic way of life. But by the time Patanjali comes on the scene, there are distinct three categories of people. So his message is for all of them. Then comes one rishi named Gautam. He writes a book on Nyaya. So by this time, probably even arguments are becoming fallacious. People are using wrong logical tools for one-upmanship, so to say, just to win over the other person. So he framed the book of logic, how to hold a debate, how to put forth your argument, and as illustrations, he talked again about me, myself, what am I in this world for, how to achieve liberation, and so on and so forth. So his book is on logic because now arguments are becoming not only sweet but sour too. People are using arguments, fallacious logic for petty gain, so to say, just to win over somebody. Then comes Vaisheshik. Now, Vaisheshik is at a where Sankhya begins from Prakriti, the minutest particle. Vaisheshik is talking about material world. His starting point is Vishesh, so to say the Panchbhut, Agni, Vayu, Jal, Akash, and Prithvi, so to say. So, but again, he says, we must know all that exists in its entirety. So, anything that exists is dharmi, and all its characteristics that is to be known is called dharma. So, he says that yato abhyuda nishaya siddhi sadharma. If you want material progress as well as spiritual progress, you must get to know the dharma characteristics of all that exists in the universe so that you can interact with your own self and you know how to interact with other things to what extent, because we have to survive, so we need food, water, air, house, and so on and so forth. But this is just the means. Finally, the end is nishayas. Then there has to be a proper balance. So to say, I eat to live and not that I live to eat. Then further decline. Now comes Badrayana, the author of Vedanta, also called as Uttamimamsa, also called as Brahm Sutra. His treatise begins with Athato Brahm Jigyasa, an inquiry about that supreme consciousness. So by this time, there has been enough decline that some people even begin to question the existence of that supreme consciousness. They were enjoying the world but were not concerned who made the world. So he writes a book on that Brahm Jigyasa. And slightly later, the other person is contemporary to him, named Gemini. He writes a book on called Mimansa, where he talks more about karma. So, Sankhya is talking more about meditation, upasana. And the Nyaya and Vaisheshik is more about knowledge, how to ascertain truthful knowledge. And now we are at karma. So, this just gives you an idea how a human being or human society goes through a decline. You lose track of upasana, then you are not even interested in knowledge part, and you just do some visible karma because karma is visible. So we are about to talk in terms of Agnihotra. Agnihotra is also a karma, actions. These are very much visible things. So there is always a danger. Somebody does a visible action just to show off. And because there is a philosophy, law of karma, karma fal siddhant. A karma brings certain rewards. So a lot of people get engaged into karma thinking I will get some rewards. So these are the issues associated with karma, of which class Agnihotra falls in. Agnihotra is a action-based karma. So we need to understand all these aspects. And then we are trying to see what are the spiritual aspects in this particular tiny act, very small act of what is called Agnihotra. A householder is expected to do it twice a day, morning and evening, which, if you are quite well organized, it will take 15 minutes, 20 minutes at most. But we have to have a good idea why are we doing it. If our focus is not clear, then it just becomes a show off. It is. But that's the beauty of the Vedic rishis, that even seemingly ritualistic work, action, like Agnihotra, they made it such an interwoven with spiritual angle that you cannot get away from spirituality. That's what we want to experience here, understand here. So anyway, we have seen in pre-Mahabharata period three three ages of must have existed, as we know, because the evidence is in terms of the literature that exists. So the Vedic age, Upanishadic age, and the age of Shardharshan. Six books in three pairs. We usually pair them. Sankhya and Yoga, one pair. Nyaya Vaisheshik, one pair. And Mimamsa and Vedant. Though Vedant author is the teacher of Badhayan, is the teacher of Gemini, but his book is referred to as Uttar Mimamsa, and Gemini's book is referred to as Purva Mimamsa. And as I said, Uttar Mimamsa is also called as Brahma Sutra as well as Vedanta. So this pair, Badrayana and Gemini, in our Orthodox timeline, they were there about 6,000 years ago. From that, probably Maharishi Dayanand took the clue that India began its decline 6,000 years ago because the Vedic Rishi found himself in a state that he had to write a book logically proving the existence of God. Like today, we need to prove it. So there must have been a time when a significant fraction of people did not believe in existence of God in the time of Badayana. And then a lot of people just indulged in all kinds of action based things, thinking they will bring reward. So Gemini writes a book that your actions, your karma should be only dharma, athato dharma vyakyasyam. What is it? As given in the Vedas. So he's saying your action should be in accordance with the Vedas. Chodana lakshano artha dharma. All those, this is in Sanskrit grammar is called Vidiling. All the narratives in the Vedas that are in nature of enjoining, they give you a message, a command that you should do this, you should do that. That sort of Vidiling vachan of Vedas is your dharma. Then, of course, somebody could say, why should I follow the Vedas? Then he goes into a complex set of arguments that they are the words of the Parmeshwar, Ishwar, and because he is eternal, his word is eternal, so that has to be taken into account. So there is a famous argument that Shabd Nitya hai. So eternal fact nature of the words in the Vedas. So anyway, we have seen these three layers. Now the interesting thing happens. There is a fourth body of the literature. That is very interesting. The fourth body of the literature is that is called as Vedanga. So besides Vedas, Upanishads, and six books of Vedic philosophy, these are three bodies of literature. We have another independent fourth body of literature that is called as Vedanga. Ved and Anga, as if they are the limbs of the Vedas. So if you want to, today in the modern times, if you want to study the Vedas, you have to study the Vedanga first. Then you are to the extent qualified to some extent to study the Vedas. So let me give the six limbs. This is called Shiksha. First is Shiksha, should not be translated as education. This is like phonetics. This is like first book of alphabet that any child has to go through. Very first book in his life. So in classical time, this was Varnocharan Shiksha. How to produce the sound from the human vocal cord, human system. From A to Ma, all these sounds. Where each sound comes from, where should you apply the thrust, when should be the aspiration, where should be the nasal effect. So all this taken into account, you know it in Devanagari script we have, which is very rich in sounds. All these are mentioned in this. These are small books, just a few statements, such as Aku Visajniya Kanta. This is from Panini. What he's saying is the sound of A. Ku is the kavag, which is ka, kha, ga, gha, ga, ha, and Visajniya. A, ku, ha, Visajniya Kanta. It originates from throat region. And then there are different regions where you apply the force. to bring out a particular sound, and how one sound is different from another. You know it that our language is phonetic language, and that is a very rich language. All the Indian languages are very rich because they have adopted this phonetic structure of the Vedas. And that's why we have so many sounds. And it's very wonderful, very scientific. So, six Vedangas, Shiksha is first, phonetic sounds, Vyakaran, which means Sanskrit grammar. Of course, the one that is most authoritative is Panini grammar. The book is Ashtadhyayi, and there are many other related books, Gad parts, Dhatu part, and so on. And Ashtadhyayi has many commentaries, Kashika and Mahabhashya, etc. Then comes Niyukta. Niyukta is the one that exists, is from Yaska. It is very much like a glossary of certain words. He has made certain groups of Vedic words and put them in certain groups. So that is Vedic glossary of Vedic words, so to say. That is called a Niyukta. So if you want to dive deep into Vedas, this is besides grammar, you have to be fluent in Niyukta also. Otherwise, because the words in the Vedas have very peculiar meaning, different from what may be shown in a Sanskrit dictionary. Then there is called a Chanda. So that is the meters of the Vedic verses. And let's see, Shiksha, Vyakaran, Niyukta, Chanda, and Jyotish. Jyotish is astronomy. So when you have to perform certain things, of course, it has to be at certain time. Like we will know that Agnihotra should be performed in the morning, at sunrise, and just at the sunset. Then we have to know at this particular location on the earth when will the sunset happen, when will the next sunrise happen. So you have to have certain ideas about astronomical science. That is Jyotish. And lastly is called Kalpa. Kalp is a huge body of literature. Within Kalp will come Dharma Sutra, Gahya Sutra, etc. So the word meaning of Kalp is something we have framed, we have designed, we have modeled, we have simulated. So this Kalp has a short yag and all kinds of elaborate Somyag, Ashwamedh, and this and that. And Agnihotra is a part of this. So that has to be understood. We are, so today I will say we have got a overview of the Vedic literature. The first layer of the Vedas, that is the source and origin of all our knowledge. Upanishadic age, Upanishads have gist of the spiritual knowledge. Brahmana has the gist of the material science, etc. Then we have seen six books of Vedic philosophy: Sankhya Yoga, Nyaya Vaisheshik, and Mimamsa and Vedanta. And then we have seen that Vedic Rishi, even at the first age, they were concerned that how the future generations will be able to study the Vedas. So they began to produce certain literature that will help the future generations to get to the depth of the meaning of the Vedas. And they called that body of literature as Vedanga. So today, as we find ourselves, we have to study the Sanskrit grammar, the phonetic, the niyukt, this and that, because we are not naturally connected to the Vedas as the very first generation was connected. So it's like if you live today in America, born here, Hindi is not your first language, foreign language it is, and you want to travel to India. So you will pick up a book on Hindi grammar, and try to learn it because you are far away from space and time from India's Hindi language. So we are far away now from the Vedas, from those generations. So we have to, it's not very natural for us. We have to get some training and then pick up something. These are called as Vedanga. So the Kalp is very important because our discussion is on Agnihotra. Agnihotra is coming within this body of literature called as Kalpa. So here I want to read out from Maharishi Dayanand's, before he writes the commentaries on the Vedas, he wrote an introduction that itself is a book, Rigvedadi Bhashya Bhumika. So there is a chapter towards the end, a very short, brief chapter, Pratijya Vishaya, as if he is taking a particular position. When you take a position in a set of argument, that is your Pratijya. So he's writing something. Let me give you the very brief background to this, which I think we will discuss. As I said, introduction will be in two parts. So today is the first part, the overview of Vedic literature. Now, the next session we will talk in terms of human pursuits, Jnana, Karma, and Upasana. Because Agnihotra is a karma, so we have to see where does it fall in the Vedic schema of human pursuits. So that we'll do in the next week. Today I am confining myself to the overview of the Vedic literature, but I have just given you three terms: Jnana, Karma, and Upasana. Incoming knowledge, that is Jnana, outgoing action, that is Karma, and Upasana is, as the word says, to be with Him. So, disconnection from my mind by way of meditation and then being with Him, and asana, that is Upasana. So, the four Vedas are said to be, Maharishi Dayanand writes it somewhere in the Ved Vishaya. Let me see if I can quickly find that out. Ved Vishaya. He is writing, so I'm going backward now, so let's just a minute, I'll find out that page. Ved Vishaya Vichara. I just thought might as well read it from his book. Yeah. I am reading a passage in Hindi, I will translate into English. The chapter is called as Ved Vishaya Vichara. This is from Rigvedadi Bhashya Bhumika. अब वेदों के नित्यत्व विचार के उपरांत वेदों में कौन कौन विषय किस किस प्रकार के हैं इसका विचार किया जाता है. After having discussed the eternal feature, nityatva of the Vedas, like I said, Jaimini man said that word is nitya. He is saying, now we will discuss what theme and topics have been covered in the Vedas. वेदों में अवयव रूप विषय तो अनेक हैं, परंतु उनमें से चार मुख्य हैं. Looking at the component of the topics and themes covered in the Vedas, they are enormous. But there are four principal subjects covered in the Vedas. पहला एक विज्ञान अर्थात सब पदार्थों को यथार्थ जानना. Now these four topics are in the order of Rigved, Yajurved, Samved and Atharved. So Rigved is saying Vijnana. Vijnan commonly is translated in India as science, but here, as you will see slightly later, this is spiritual knowledge, high order spiritual knowledge. दूसरा कर्म, that is in Yajurveda, कर्म. तीसरा upasana, the third subject is upasana in the Samved. और चौथा ज्ञान है, and fourth topic is knowledge, jnana as such, in the Atharved. As I said, Vijnan is, he is himself writing, विज्ञान उसको कहते हैं कि जो कर्म, उपासना और ज्ञान इन तीनों से यथावत उपयोग लेना और परमेश्वर से लेकर तृण पर्यंत पदार्थों के साक्षात बोध का होना, उनसे यथावत उपयोग का करना. इससे यह विषय इन चारों में प्रधान है. So he is saying about Vijnan. The other three, Karma, Upasana and Jnana, are supposed to lead you towards Vijnan. This is Vishishta, special knowledge. Vijnan is what? To know that Supreme Being, Parmeshwar se lekar trin parayant. That Supreme Being to even the smallest material thing. And how do you know it? Sakshat, through realization. That's why Upasana is important, meditation practice. Sakshat bodh ka hona. Even the Supreme Being has to be realized by way of meditation. So as you have seen, four Vedas talk about in order of Rigved, Yajurved, Samved, Atharved. They talk about Vijnan, Karma and Upasana and Jnana. So Karma is a very special subject of interest for us because it comes within these four components that we have discussed. Now I come to that Pratijya Vishay. That's what originally I wanted to say. इस वेद भाष्य में शब्द और उनके अर्थ द्वारा कर्म कांड का वर्णन कहेंगे. Let me give you the background here. Because his commentary on the Vedas is what is called Parmarthik. Because he wanted to prove in his time वेद सब सत्य विद्याओं का पुस्तक है. So he wanted to show to us that all types of knowledge are covered in this set of books known as the Vedas. So he did not highlight in the direction of karma or in the direction of upasana, etc. So he is justifying it here. Why did he not do that? इस वेद भाष्य में शब्द और उनके अर्थ द्वारा कर्म कांड का वर्णन करेंगे, परंतु कर्म कांड में लगाए हुए वेद मंत्रों में से जहां तहां जो कर्म अग्निहोत्र से लेकर अश्वमेध के अंत पर्यंत करने चाहिए उनका वर्णन यहाँ नहीं किया जाएगा. So the whole scheme of karma, he usually uses the term Ashwamedh se Agnihotra tak. So as if Agnihotra is the simplest karma kand and Ashwamedh is as the most elaborate karma kand. So there is a whole wide spectrum of karma. So he's saying this commentary that he is writing will not dwell much into this aspect. Then he's saying why. क्योंकि उनके अनुष्ठान का यथार्थ विनियोग ऐते शतपथादि ब्राह्मण पूर्व मीमांसा श्रोत और गह्य सूत्र आदिकों में कहा हुआ है. He is saying all those aspects have already been covered in the books known as Brahmana, Aite, Shatpat, Gopat, and Brahman. Purvamimamsa, that I also said by Jaimini, श्रोत एवं गह्य सूत्र आदिकों में. उसी को फिर कहने से पिसे को पीसने के समतुल्य अल्पज्ञ पुरुषों के लेख के समान दोष इस भाष्य में भी आ सकता है. So he is justifying that in this book he is not. But I wanted to read out this passage so that you get an idea what he means by Karm Kand, Ashwamedh to Agnihotra. The same passage I am reading again from the English translation of Rigvedadi Bhashabhumika. I like this particular English translation of Rigvedadi Bhashabhumika. This is by Paramananda. If you can read it. So the passage that I read out from Pratijya Vishay, I am reading out from this book, page 421. The title of the chapter is A Brief Declaration of Principles. In the projected commentary of the Vedas, we shall refer to the ritual side Karm Kanda only to the extent as is inferable directly from the import of the textual words. We shall, however, not provide a detailed account of the ritual acts which are to be performed in a variety of yajnas, beginning with the Agnihotra up to the Ashwamedh, in accordance with the mantras which are applicable to the ritual portion also. The reason is that the application of the mantras to the various parts of rituals in detail has already been described in the books on rituals. Example, Ate and the Shatpat, the Purvamimamsa, Short Sutras, etc. The repetition of the same in our commentary will mar our work with the blemish of tautological repetition, amounting to the grinding of the already powdered thing. The fault which disfigures the books composed by the non-seers. जो ऋषि नहीं है वे लोग उसी बात को दोबारा लिखते हैं. So that was, I think it's time that our session 1 comes to an end. We have had an overview of the Vedic literature and have seen that Agnihotra falls in the category in the body of the literature known as Kalp within the Vedanga, which has 6 limbs. And Kalp is also a huge body of literature, and Agnihotra is the last tiniest thing that everybody was expected to perform. This also falls into the body of literature called as Brahmana. And as I said, Brahmans are the book on material science as if they were simulation of what happens in the universe, like a solar system, like the earth moving around, why the day and night happens, why the different seasons happen, the summer, the winter, and so on and so forth. So today, a child is taken into a laboratory where a model of solar system is there, and that helps him understand it. So this is what our rishis did it. They developed a lot of simulation in terms of these elaborate yajna. So you will see that the yajna is a simulation of a phenomenon or several phenomena taking place in the universe so that the grand design of that supreme being can be understood. So we will pursue in this spirit that what Agnihotra is simulating, the sun and the moon and the earth, and what is the message we are getting. So these are models, simulation, which are imparting some spiritual message to us. And the rishis developed these models to give a message to the future generation. So we look at it from this aspect, the meaning of Agnihotra. And also, as I said, next session will be devoted to the human pursuits of Jnana Kayam Upasana. That happens to be the major subject areas of the Vedas. And we will see in this dimension of Karma how to look at Agnihotra in a sensible manner. Thank you for your attention. We'll meet again next week.